Well, welcome back. It's 3 o'clock and it's time for panel discussion. Just gonna give people a second or two to enter the room again. So, welcome all back to this session, the first panel of the conference on the topic Theological Imagination and Narratives around AI and the Digital. My name is Frida Mannerfelt and I'm situated at Lund University in Sweden. This panel is about how we tell our stories about the AI and the digital. And the panel will start with a few short impulses from our panelists before we let them engage in conversation. First panelists, and then the rest of us can enter the conversation. When I prepared for this panel, I realized that we do tell stories about the AI and the digital, but the AI and the digital also tell stories about us if we ask them. So when I prepared a presentation for our three distinguished panelists, I asked generative AI to tell me their stories. I instructed the generative AI to tell me about the global network of digital theology and then about each of the panelists. And I asked it to write a presentation about each of you. As a person who will speak on the topic of today. So I'm going to start now by introducing our first panelist, Professor Dr. Ilona Nord. And here is the story about her according to the digital. We are honored to welcome Professor Dr. Ilona Nord, Professor of Religious Education and Practical Theology at the University of Würzburg, to this panel. Her interdisciplinary scholarship bridges theology, media studies, and religious pedagogy with a particular focus on how digital technologies reshape religious communication and theological imagination. Professor Nord has significantly contributed to the discourse on digital theology. Notably, she's co-edited Theologie und Digitalität, ein Compendium, which offers a comprehensive overview of how digital transformation impacts church and theology. In Mediatisierung religiöser Kultur, sorry about my German, she explores the implications of digitalization on religious culture and practices, and additionally her work on Religionspädagogik in einer mediatisierten Welt addresses the challenges and opportunities digital media present for religious education. Her research invites us to critically reflect on the narratives forming around digital technologies, not only as external developments, but as spaces in which theology is both expressed and contested. We look forward to hearing her insights on how theological imagination can contribute to, challenge, and reframe the stories we tell about AI and the digital. And if I were to add something to that, I would say that it would be worth mentioning that she was also part of the big Contact project that studied the digital transition during the pandemic of the churches. So please, Professor Nord, we are eager to hear your impulse.
Frida, thanks so much. That is really great how you introduced me. I hardly did not recognize myself. But I just add that I improved to communicate my research in English. So there are some things which you can read in English as well. But thanks for trying German, and it was very good. So I will share my PowerPoint. Is that working?
Working perfectly. Just go ahead.
Thanks. Between innovation and institution, narratives of church leaders on AI and the digital is part of a current research project together with Pauline Chong and Thomas Schlag And we we interviewed people, church leaders on AI. And what I like to do now is to give you some insights in the narratives, or to sum it up, in the topics of the narratives. So, to introduce, sorry, so. Artificial intelligence is reshaping our communication cultures, workflows, and interpretive frameworks, including those in religious settings. But what role does AI play for those at the center of ecclesial leadership? What theological imaginaries and institutional narratives inform their understanding of the digital? Our qualitative interview study offers exploratory insights based on qualitative interviews with 23 Protestant and Catholic leaders, 16 Protestant and 7 Catholic in Germany, who consider themselves digitally literate. To collect the data, the deductive qualitative method of guided expert interviews was employed. The data were primarily coded deductively and analyzed with max QDA and sentiment analysis, which identifies the last one, the sentiment analysis, which identifies emotional tone in texts and complements qualitative research. 3 key theses mark the contours of our investigation. First one. Respondents display a predominantly pragmatic attitude. AI is perceived as helpful for administrative or communicative tasks, such as text correction, website support, or knowledge management. However, its potential for transforming pastoral, theological, or liturgical practices is rarely addressed. The respondents often frame AI as existing outside the real tasks of church leadership. Theologically grounded reflections on how AI might enhance or challenge spiritual communication are largely absent. 2. Relational barriers in pastoral contexts. AI is widely rejected where relational depth and interpersonal authenticity are deemed essential. In areas like preaching or pastoral care, respondents express strong resistance, often invoking theological anthropology. Human creativity, empathy, and ethical judgment are seen as non-transferable to machines. From this perspective, interaction with AI is viewed as inadequate for ecclesial communication, which is interpreted as fundamentally interpersonal and incarnational. 3. Lack of experience and leadership agency. While many respondents are open to AI in principle, they lack hands-on experience and strategic frameworks for its integration. The study highlights a lack of agency. Leaders do not see themselves as responsible for shaping AI in ecclesial contexts. Instead, they await ethical guidelines, institutional mandates, or external innovations. This contributes to a narrative of passive observation rather than theological engagement or visionary leadership. Conclusion and outlook, or key takeaways. Taken together, these findings reveal a complex and ambivalent narrative among church leaders. Most Protestant and Catholic leaders in Germany support only limited administrative uses of AI and express concern about its potential to compete with human agency. Personal experience with AI is rare, or the reflection of AI use is rare, and organizational structures to explore its potential are lacking. Though AI is becoming integral in many fields, religious leaders show hesitation, shaped by theological traditions critical of technology. While generally open to weak AI, they call for regulation and uphold the human core of church communication. A lack of initiative or a lack of initiative and clear mandates limits active engagement. Nonetheless, theology can contribute to a broader ethical discourse on human-machine interaction. What is missing is a theological imagination that takes AI seriously not only as a technical tool, but also as a cultural and ethical mirror. A truly digital theology would not see institutional tradition and digital innovation as opposing forces, but as dynamic elements of a church that must continually reimagine its mission. How can we, as a discussion prompt, how can we, as an international theological community, create spaces in which religious leaders can develop theologically grounded and practically viable narratives for engaging with digital transformation? Which theological resources, biblical, ethical, systematic, are available to guide and shape our interaction with AI? Thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Nord. That was brilliant. Before we get into conversation, we will listen to the two other impulses, but I can see that several people are ready to go already. But first, we will listen to the other two. Next in my introduction is Professor Dr. Florian Höhne. And this is the story that AI told about Professor Höhne. It is a pleasure to introduce Professor Dr. Florian Höhne, Professor of Media Communication, Media Ethics, and Digital Theology at the Friedrich Alexander University in Erlangen-Nürnberg. This has been adjusted because originally it placed him in Göttingen. His interdisciplinary scholarship bridges systematic theology, media studies, and ethics, with a particular focus on how digital technologies reshape religious communication and theological imagination. Professor Höhne has significantly contributed to digital theology and public theology discourses. His recent monograph, Verantwortung in der evangelischen Ethik, Begriff, Imagination and soziale Praxis, explores the theological and ethical dimensions of responsibility grounded in imaginative and socially engaged practices. In his article, Imaginaries and Normativities, Experimental Impulses for Digital and Public Theologies, he calls for the integration of normative reflection and empirical analysis, emphasizing the theological potential of digital imaginaries. In this panel, Professor Höhne brings a critical lens to the moral and imaginative frameworks that underlie our engagement with AI and digital technologies. His work helps us to consider not only what these technologies mean for theology, but how theology might offer experimental and constructive resources for reimagining our digital futures. If I were to add something to that, Professor Höhne is co-editor of an upcoming volume with contribution from last year's conference with the Global Network for Digital Theology. It will be published next spring at TNT Clark's new book series on digital theology. So those of you who are writing books should consider this new book series. It's going to turn out really great. And so will the first book, the anthology. So, Professor Höhne, please give us your impulse to the conversation.
Thank you very much for the introduction for your part and for the AI part, and thank you also for the invitation. And let me just add that you just heard the other co-editor of the same volume, Frida, is editing the volume of last year's conference as first editor, and I'm her co-editor. So thank you for pointing to that. the AI caught one of my basic interests and impulses here. I think the category of imaginations or the imaginary is very helpful because it helps us to combine, to integrate a descriptive task of theology and a constructive or normative task of theology. That will be the basic point in my impulse to come. Lately, I wanted to try the AI-based language assistant of my smartphone, just out of curiosity. A conversation developed, and I found myself caught in that conversation. And while talking to that AI language assistant, I started to imagine my digital counterpart as something like a person, as a personal counterpart, as if it were a human being answering. I even wrote please and thank you in my prompts. Within the practices in which we use digital technology, our imaginations of technology are key. That is and should be one of the central topics of digital theology. To support this thesis, I will briefly say how I understand imaginaries and what they have to do with AI and the digital. I have developed my understanding of imaginations and the imaginary from my work on responsibility. Frida has mentioned the book. My understanding of imaginations stems from dealing with the works of Benedict Castoriadis, with post-colonial studies, Charles Taylor, and particularly Cornelius Castoriadis, a French sociologist. With Taylor, I understand social imaginaries as something socially shared and individually held, as concrete imaginations that inform concrete practices, like my imagination formed the practice of dealing with my smartphone. Those imaginations are learned and passed on in images, narrative, and practices. They are socially shared and form a repertoire of imaginations, the social imaginary. The work of Cornelius Castoriadis entails a very important distinction between two kinds of imaginations. There are individual imaginations and there is the social imaginary. The individual imagination refers to imaginations one individual person has of its social surroundings, of expectations, of the nature of things or the nature of technology. We can make them explicit. We reflect on them, maybe change individual imaginations through new narratives. I can make explicit that I started to imagine a human counterpart when interacting with the AI language model of my smartphone. And I can reflect on that and remind myself that I'm just typing with my smartphone and not with a human counterpart. Individual imaginations. But in and between individual imaginations persists what Cornelius Castoriadis calls the social imaginary, collective imaginations, which I cannot pin to one person or group. Those collective imaginations are shared in society, and they are incorporated in institutions or in technologies, like the imagination of priesthood of all in the church can be incorporated in certain institutional rules of church organizations. There's an imagination that is incorporated in institutions and technologies. They are much harder to grasp, to reflect, and to change, but they provide this source and horizon for all individual imaginations. As soon as imaginaries are socially shared and collective, we will not only encounter them as imaginations, but also incorporated in others. For example, we encounter the imagination of nationality, not only in our own heads, the imagination of belonging to a certain nation, but also in the state, in soldiers, in border patrols, in passports, and flags, and so on. And imagination, as soon as it is collective, is incorporated in things, technologies, and institutions. This distinction allows Cornelius Castoriadis to emphasize the following point: in the interplay of individuals and societies, of individual imaginations and the social imaginations are dynamic in a way that are not controllable by one single person. There is a social imaginary that we can try to grasp, but we cannot control fully. And on this background, the reference to imaginaries becomes important for digital theology. For digital theology and the theological reflection of AI, these categories help to see and highlight a couple of important points. First, the current and future development of AI is not only a matter of technological innovation or economical power, as it is often held. It is deeply a matter of imaginations and the social imaginary. The way people, including engineers, politicians, and scientists, imagine their common humanity, how they imagine the possible role of technology and our common future, has an impact on how digital technology is further developed and how it is used. To make a quite harmless example, I doubt that it is a coincidence that one Nokia phone looked like the Star Trek communicator. Second, insofar as imaginations influence how technology is developed and decided, they come to be incorporated in this technology. Our smartphones are incorporations of the imagination of global connectedness. The institution of social networks like Facebook is an incorporation of the social imagination of expressive individualism. Robots and avatars that look like humans are incorporations of the imagination of human-like technology. All this means that the imaginary is not controlled only by politicians or managers. Rather, it has its own non-controllable dynamic. That makes it necessary and important task of digital theology to make those imaginations explicit and to criticize them. Third and last, insofar as imaginations are deeply held, theology will itself be influenced by them too. Theological discourses do not happen on neutral grounds, untouched by technology, social developments, and the social imaginary. Rather, theology finds itself in the midst of all these, always influenced by all of these. Hence, theology's first task in dealing with AI will be in dealing with its own implicit imaginations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Höhne. That was brilliant. We're getting into the conversation, but before that, we will also listen to our third panelist. There you are, Dr. Professor Daw-Wei Wang. And this.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks.
And we can see you. Thank you. So this is the story that generative AI told about you. We are honored to welcome Professor Dr. Daw-Wei Wang, Professor of Physics at National Tsinghua University in Taiwan, to this interdisciplinary panel. Professor Wang's research encompasses condensed matter theory, quantum many-body systems, and the application of machine learning techniques to complex physical phenomena. His work exemplifies the fruitful intersection of physics and artificial intelligence, offering insights into how computational methods can unravel the intricacies of quantum systems. Notably, Professor Wang has contributed to the development of machine learning approaches for identifying topological phase transitions and characterizing superconducting qubits, as seen in his publications such as Robust Identification of Topological Phase Transition by Self-Supervised Machine Learning Approach and Automatic Characterization of Fluxonium Superconducting Qubits Parameters with Deep Transfer Learning. That was even more difficult than German. Additionally, he has been instrumental in creating AI-driven educational tools like the interactive virtual assistant Little Tai, which enhances physics learning experiences. So in this panel, Professor Wang brings a physicist's perspective to the discourse on AI and digital narratives, inviting us to consider how scientific methodologies and technological advancements inform and are informed by broader cultural and theological imaginations. And if I were to add something here as well, Professor Wang is also the leader of the Artificial Intelligence for Fundamental Research Group, which aims to study and to explore the application as well as the fundamental research of artificial intelligence in various research fields, including, but not exclusive, physics, astronomy, brain sciences, computer sciences, humanity, and the social sciences. So this is someone who's really interdisciplinary. So we are very honored to welcome Professor Wang, and we are eager to hear your impulse.
Okay, thanks. It's really my honor to have this chance to share my experience or some of my thoughts with you guys. So it seems to me that I'm probably the only one from the engineering background or from the scientist background. So maybe if you maybe I can share some two of my slides, and so that maybe you can know what I was doing, and probably this experience can enrich our conversation later. So can I share my PowerPoint? Yeah.
Absolutely. You should have a screen sharing.
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. That's too much. So let me wait. I think I should share the whole screen. And then, okay. So let me, as Frida say that I have many different research. Part of them are related to fundamental sciences, like in physics and also in brain sciences. But there's another important part is my research on the application of AI is humanity and the social science. So most of my research in this field, well, half of it, not most. I mean, half of it is related to the so-called legal AI, which is to apply artificial intelligence to the legal service. For example, we have some collaboration with the highest court in Taiwan and to develop some AI sentencing system for crime cases. And also we have a prediction system for child custody, so which is about to decide for the court to decide how the child should belong to, if who should belong to if the parents are deciding to divorce it, right? So it's a very difficult problem. So, but of course there are some details about how do we apply the AI on these issues. But just let you know that we are doing something about this. And so that's, well, sorry, most of these are written in Mandarin. So well, just let you know that it has been known for a while in Taiwan. So another part of my research recently is in education, which is to apply, we call it little type. So which is means that teaching AI or teaching assistant intelligence. Okay, so we call little type, who is supposed to be a senior college students in physics to help my students to learn physics. Actually, it is not only applied in my class, but in my whole universities. So now more than 1,000, let me say, 15 or 1,600 students in my university to use that for their elementary studies in, for example, in general physics or in calculus or in some other courses. We also sell this product to other universities or even high schools. So it's quite interesting to have this kind of experience. And okay, that's the news in the TV. And okay, the third part is about social science, where that my collaborators and I propose the idea about publicity of AI, which is in contradict to the we called capitalism of AI, because as most of us have known that most of the application of AI or the development of AI are in in the private companies like Google, like OpenAI, right, and like Meta or many other big companies, or the XAI, whatever. So you can see that it is very strange because in the traditional development of science and technology, usually the best technology was developed in universities, right, and by professors and their students. When this kind of technology becomes useful or means that it has marketing value, then we sell this idea to the business persons. Okay, so they make a factory instead of a laboratory. Okay, they make factory to mass product this kind of products or technology. Okay, so that we can sell this product to others in the society or in the world. Okay, but that's a traditional way. So that means that in the traditional development of technology, the best technology are developed in the universities, then downgrade to the companies or to the industry, to the enterprise. However, AI is very different because the best development, the best application, or the best people are all in this kind of private companies like Google. Okay, so they hire the best people because they have the most material to train the AI. Okay, they have a lot of money. Okay, to support this kind of development. So at this kind of development, so that means that the development of AI will be different from previous technology. So in this context, we want to emphasize that it is important to apply machine learning or apply AI to publicity, to public affairs. Okay, the way to do that is to collaborate with governments, because government has very important information about the whole society, about the whole nation, right? So of course, our scholars in the university can collaborate with the government so that to make the AI useful or valuable to the whole society instead of just for these private companies. So that's how we code or define the publicity of AI. So we try to propose this idea and try to also try to make as much as possible and to make good examples of this. Okay, so finally, another part of my research is related to counseling or psychology, because I myself is also a director of counseling center in my universities. So we have several chances to see that how AI can influence our students, and but we try to develop some systems. For example, here we develop a voice detection systems in social media. So if sometimes, well, not very often, but sometimes, in Taiwan, and maybe some students want to say he want to have suicide tonight, for example. So this kind of message may not be easily detected immediately by human peoples. Okay, so we develop AI systems which can survey the social media automatically, and if it found some information like this, it can transfer this kind of image or message back to the backend, so that in principle, we can have some person to start to catch up this idea and catch up this person and try to find his ID and maybe contact the police to help him as soon as possible, something like that. But of course, these systems are developing, and we are also trying to collaborate with the government and also the company of social media, try to connect all of this together. That's also what we are trying to do. So basically, that's what I was doing mostly in recent years. And of course, I also developed, these are just some title of my articles or slides recently related to this idea, and especially in Christianity. So because I was also invited to church and seminary to share this kind of experience. So well, that's just some translation from my Chinese essays. So just let you know what I was doing. So of course, I'm also very happy to learn more about your opinion related to recent development of machine learning or AI. So which I think is certainly an important step for our humanity or the whole Christianity to have a better reaction or response to this development. Okay, so maybe I stop right here, and so thank you for your listening. I hope I can explain it well enough. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Wang. You stop sharing your screen. We can see the panelists. There we are.
Okay.
This is very interesting. Just a question for Professor Wang before we get started, because this is the AI told stories about you, and in the story that the generative AI told about you, it didn't say anything about your theological articles, which is really interesting. As you are an expert on machine learning, will a generative AI be better at telling our stories in a near future, or what?
That's an interesting question, but I have to say that no one really know what happened after 1 year. Okay, so it's very hard to predict. Okay, so imagine that we can. It's very hard for us to imagine what happened and now, right? About 1 year before, because everything developed so fast. Okay, I can get this kind of updated information almost every week. So many different companies have very good development and so on in many different areas of much artificial intelligence. So it's very difficult to predict. But in general, I believe that in the last half of this year, 2025, and 2026, I think we will have another way to see AI, which is robot. Okay, so I think that will be more and more popular in our daily life. In next year, and the AI, what we know about large language model, something it will be built in this kind of robot, so that we will see more and more robots working in our family or in our society, or self-driving car, for example, is also a kind of robot. So in other words, this kind of AI will appear. Okay, it can collaborate with us, or maybe in a factory, so that it can save the human power, so that it can generate more power. Something. So I believe that it will certainly happen more. I mean, extensively in the next 1 year. That's what I can see. Okay. So, but of course, the other possibility is that maybe this new development of artificial intelligence will make it smarter, so that it can solve more and more problems in our daily life. For example, in the last year, as most of you have known, that the Nobel Prize in physics and chemistry were awarded to the development of AI, right? So I think this will happen more frequently in the next future years. So I have to say, although it is not so optimistic, that means there are also many other problems caused by AI in the future. But we can see that uh, it will appear more frequently, not only in ChatGPT, something like that, writing or dialogue in the computers. We will see them more and more in our daily lives. I think that will happen in the future. Yeah.
Those of us who gather here next year will see if what happens then, if it really gets better at telling our stories, or what will happen with it. Thank you, Professor Wang.
Yeah.
So, well, let's turn now to the narratives that we tell about AI and the digital. What is at stake here? Why does it matter which narratives about AI and the digital that we use? But what would be the contribution of the theological imagination that you called for, Professor Nord? If you would like to start and tell a bit about what's at stake.
Thank you so much, Frida. I'm really impressed by your presentation from Taiwan, because it's I feel a totally different cultural situation concerning technical inventions in comparison to the German cultural situation. So that is really interesting for us. So what is at stake, Frida? I presented a paper in which I gave insights that the church leaders are open for AI, but aren't sure what to do in concrete and what could help. So if you say something about problem solving with AI, which problems could be solved in a church context besides the administrative area? That is, I mean, that is the work we have to do. For example, here in that discussions of digital theology, what could be the right way to imagine an AI which is really face to face to humanity and to the criteria we address to humanity. So that is the first thing. The second thing is, I guess, yes, it's also in our context that the research in universities is the motor of the is the engine of the development, and there are robots in daily life, also in Germany, using it for grass cutting or for cleaning or something. And what about also there are some robots in elderly homes, and we experiment with HRI. And it's also driven by university research.
Right.
Yes, and to finalize my impressions, I'm at the moment working together with human-computer interaction on a project on a companion technology. We like to invent something what we call at the moment soulmate. And to sum it up, you have one paper mentioned on responses regarding faith, frequent questions, frequently asked questions, and responses regarding faith. So I would like to engage you to give us some insights on that, and if possible, that you share that paper with us. Thanks.
Okay. Should I respond or?
Yeah, yes, please do.
Thanks for the questions. So I'm not sure if I catch all of this, but that's certainly very important. Your first important question is about what are the problems we want to solve in church, right, for AI. Okay, besides of the administrative things. So I would like to say that 2 points. The first point is that even for administrative things, it is really important for AI to help our pastors or co-workers to save time. Because, for example, I also made a system for social worker in Taiwan. Okay, I didn't say that, that's transparency because we just started this project. So what we did is that to help them to translate their recording when they have conversation with families or people in need. Okay, they usually have to type records, right, about their experience or what they are talking about after their conversation. But this recording or this report usually take a lot of time for those social workers. For example, they may have 1 hour conversations, but they need another 1 hour to make a official report about what they are talking about to their boss. Okay, but the system we are developing right now is to use AI to translate their conversation, okay, from speech to text, and from the text to report directly. So all what they need, okay, is to modify or revise the report supported by AI, so that all the process maybe can be finished in 5 minutes or something like that. Okay, so we save time for social workers so that they can have time to stay with the people in need or stay with those families in need, so that they can feel that, oh, there's a real human people carrying us and bring the resources or advices for my families, right? That's how social workers can be more than before, because if half of their time have to type the report, not to stay with the family in need, these social workers will not feel valued for their job. And because they think they just most of the time are do administrative things, right? But that's not the calling for them to help people. So in other words, if we save this time of administrative things, they will have more time to help people directly. But you can say that's exactly the same thing for pastors. So because the administrative things in church also cost a lot of time. So if we can use AI to save this, for example, to select music or to prepare the speech or whatever, to make a poster or something like that, to save time, so that the church leaders can have more time to have prayers and to discuss with people to help them, something like that, to deeper their relationship with their believers or their fathers, so that they can disciple them better. Right. So I have to say that's the important thing. The second thing is that besides our administrative things, we think that church pastors can use AI to stimulate their understanding about the world, about the society, because most of the pastor or the church leaders have to stay most of the time in church only, right? They don't know too much about the development of the society or the world or how the people working in their environments. So usually this information are too much for them to dialogue, to understand. But now have a AI in hand, AI can help them to glean these informations and help them to understand society better and understand the new development in the other part of the earth, so that they can connect this development to their theological understanding and their biblical inspiration together. All of this can be helped by AI to initiate some discussion, or if you discuss with ChatGPT like this, they can give you some idea, right? Of course, may not be correct. There might be some bias, but the pastor can discuss with some people like this, so that the horizon of the pastor's understanding about the world, about the society, about the people in their church can be also extended by AI. So I think that's also important. That's also kind of another kind of incarnation, right? When Jesus comes to the world, they try to know these people. They have to understand what try to understand the life of these Jewish people, right? But our parents don't know what we are doing in our job because they have no experience. But of course, because pastor is a human, not Jesus. But they can use AI to extend his approach, so that they know more about the human life, and so that they can get closer to real people and know what they are experienced, so they can initiate this kind of discussion and also brainstorming about their speech to help them. So I think that's also a way to apply AI to spiritual inspiration, something like that. So help we have a deeper pastoring experience. Maybe that to answer your first question. About your second question, maybe
Professor Wang, I'm going to stop you there because I also wanted to ask Professor Höhne something here. There seem to be interesting overlaps between the idea of a practical use, as Professor Nord had identified in the German context with your Taiwan context, but there seems to be a bit overlap with the differences in a bit more positive view from the Taiwan context. But if we ask Professor Höhne, if we apply the theological, critical and self-critical, you use those two concepts, imaginaries and imaginations on this. What is at stake? What are the potentials here to have a kind of a critical theological narrative about these things that you have seen in practice?
I think that's a very important question, and I think we see the difference imaginations make and theological critique can make in concrete practices in the questions of material ethics. Let's take an example of labor ethics, of working. We have a huge discussion about how AI and the use of AI changes how people work. And I think one of the imaginations, one of the narratives that is governing that social as well as that ecclesial discourse is the narrative of digitization being something like a natural catastrophe that is coming no matter what we do. And this narrative of digitization as natural catastrophe or natural development does not ask, or makes it impossible to ask for human ways to influence it or to be creative in that development. So when we talk about labor, when we talk about work and economies, AI often is narrated as something that comes in a certain way without anything we can change about that. And there are initiatives who try to think about that differently, like the human-friendly automation network, which tries to establish the imagination that working with AI is not a natural development, but is something that needs to be done in a human-friendly way. And that's another imagination, and that changes the horizon, because now because in that other horizon, another question is decisive. It's not the question anymore, how will the AI future how will it look like, the AI future? But the question turns to, in what direction can we influence it? How can we have processes in communities, in churches, in congregations, in enterprises, discourses on how people want to work and how the future of work can look like? Which tasks do we want to be fulfilled by AI, and which tasks do we not want to be fulfilled by AI? And if we don't change to that imagination of being creative, the danger is that AI takes all the tasks we like doing, like composing music, writing poems, and we end up doing all the tasks we don't like doing. So we need some kind of imagination that allows us to have an influence on the development, at least to try it. That's at stake.
Thank you, Professor Höhne. Professor Nord, the people that you interviewed in your empirical study, were there any traces of theology that could be helpful to imagine what they are doing? Could you see any implications of a creativity or creative theological thinking in their work? It's something that you think that you could build on?
Yes, I mean, it's a really huge and complex question in the end of that session. So I guess to put it in
short,
creativity as a term which is not that much defined, or is in many ways defined in theology, in the different theologies. So I would see an interconnection between creativity and agency. And if you take up the philosophical and theological discussions around this term of agency, you could say, okay, there is the human will, there is self-consciousness, there is responsibility and decision making, and all these aspects together are more or less that what you could say what agency is around, or what the discussion of agency is around. And so I would take these two terms together, so that if we theologize creativity, we could take that term agency, which is well known in the technical disciplines, and put that together to be more tied to the discussions which are established in the human-robot or human-computer interaction area, or in that of you, Daw-Wei, Wang, where you are doing your work, so that we overlap more and can better benefit from each other's perspectives.
Thank you, Professor Nord. This is such an interesting conversation, but time is running fast when we are listening to intelligent conversation. And Fortunately, we have a conference together where we can develop our thoughts and keep the conversation going. Thank you so much to the three of you for starting us, giving us important impulses and insights as we keep grappling with these big and important questions. So thank you so much for taking the time and engaging with us in conversation. There is a question which we do not have time for, but I think Haji Saji, if you write directly to Florian, he will kindly answer. And we will have a 1 minute break before we continue with our next session. So thank you so much. Thank you.